Welcome to Friday, the third day of January 2025. It's a new year, and finally it's a new weather pattern. It seemed like we had to get ourselves into the new year before things would finally change, and they finally are, not only in the West, but across most of the USA. Over the next 7 to 10 days, there's going to be a lot of winter weather, despite the fact there's a little bit of a break in the weather occurring today. However, as we get into the weekend, we're going to have a Pacific wave come in, another one. This will bring significant snow to the mountains, and we're going to see light to moderate snows spread across the lower elevations of parts of the central and northern Rockies. That same storm that's coming through this weekend is going to be the one you're probably already hearing about on the news. That's going to draw a swath of heavy snow and a lot of freezing rain across a large stretch of the United States to our east. That'll be causing a real mess. Behind the system, it's going to drag in a lot of very cold Canadian air from the east slopes of the Rockies to the east coast, all the way to the Gulf Coast. Much colder air will overspread the nation behind this system. So there's going to be a lot of winter weather, not only in the coming week, but we see in the longer term as well. Snow starting to add up, especially in Wyoming's western valleys. Of course, the upper Green River Basin, one of the colder places around, and with all that snow cover, like the shot here in Eden, and like the shot up here in Pinedale, there's a lot of snow on the ground, and that really leads to very cold nights, cold days, especially when you get the cold air trapped in the valleys. Great shot of the mare's tails there. And another shot out of the Lake of the Woods in Minnesota, the ice getting thicker, more widespread on lakes and reservoirs across the region. Here's the next Pacific wave. This seems like the same satellite photo every day for really the past week, because almost every day I'm showing you a wave hitting the Pacific Northwest coast. And here comes another one. But we have this little sliver of high pressure overhead today, and so we'll have a little bit of decent weather. But even up here in northwestern Wyoming, along the Montana-Wyoming border, across Idaho, you're going to have some snow showers developing today. But for this region right here, generally going to have a fair day. But this Pacific wave will come in, and it will bring a lot of weather. The yellow, the purples, the blue colors, the pink colors here, showing where we're going to have winter weather. Now, expect purple to probably fill into a large area, probably here or even further out east as we get further into the weekend. But these are the current winter storm warnings and winter weather advisories. But do expect more to show up here later on. Here is this large swath of the path of the storm coming late this weekend and into next week. And that's going to be producing a lot of wintry weather there. This system is going to be causing havoc along roads, highways, and interstates through this part of the country. Big lake effect snows coming in this weekend. So here we have the low coming on in. Here's our little high. Here's a lot of very cold air sitting up in Canada. By Sunday morning, this wave is in western Kansas heading eastbound. Along this track, we're going to have Gulf of Mexico moisture and warm, mild air getting pushed up over very cold Canadian air coming in on the backside of these low pressure systems. And the collision there is going to be producing all the weather. And then on the flow behind the low, cold air will spill into the Rockies, especially Saturday night and into Sunday on the backside of the system. So this is a recipe for kind of a big mess. If you want to travel really anywhere in the United States this weekend into Monday and Tuesday and next week, please check where you're going and what the weather forecast is going to be doing, because whether you're in the air or on the ground, you're going to have some problems. The precipitation path here is from this Pacific wave. This is through Sunday late afternoon. So you can see from the Pacific Northwest through Montana, northern and western Wyoming here, and across many areas of Idaho, you're going to have a pretty good swath of snow, rain in the lowest elevations in the areas west of the divide. And then we'll talk about this area of heavier precipitation here in a moment. But you can see there's a lot of this region right here that's going to get light to moderate snow. This is not a big snowstorm by any means, but this area right here, late Saturday through Sunday, is going to be icy, snowy, and much, much colder, with the heavier snow in the darker colors. So let's translate this to snow. So you can see very heavy snow in central and eastern Kansas, southern Nebraska points east. We'll show this further east here in a moment. This arch along in just north of I-90 going to affect travel up here this weekend with the heavier snows up there along the better moisture and the collision of cold air. But you can see another big snowmaker for the mountains. Avalanche dangers will continue to be high. This is just another pattern that's really good for the mountain ranges of the West. Now we're finally getting snow coming out into the plains. Nebraska, you're finally going to be snow covered for the first time this winter, really from county to county, border to border. Then behind the system for Monday, that cold air continues to pour in. We'll have a lot of active weather along here. High pressure is building along the West Coast, which is going to drive cold Canadian air into the U.S. along and east of the Continental Divide. Just a lot of wintry weather. Let's take a look between now and Tuesday. Total snowfall between now and Tuesday looks like this. And here is that 1,500-mile swath of heavy snow along and north of that line there from Kansas to Washington, D.C. This is going to be a mess. Very heavy snow. A lot of areas could exceed 10, 12 inches or more along this path in the brighter colors. Very heavy lake effect snows. Very cold Canadian air comes in on the backside of it. Now, I mentioned warm, moist Gulf of Mexico air coming up ahead of the system. Well, you can imagine there's going to be a boundary between where it's raining and where it's snowing. And you know what that means? A huge swath of freezing rain. So we've got heavy snow along that boundary. We have a wide swath of significant freezing rain from Kansas through Missouri, through Kentucky, parts of Tennessee, into Virginia there, maybe Washington, D.C. So this is going to be the biggest winter storm over a large area that we've seen here in a while. There's the cold air that comes in on the backside. This is by Tuesday noon. By Tuesday noon, from the Rockies to the west to the areas along the East Coast, all the way to the Gulf Coast, boy, it's going to be frigid and much, much colder. Texas, you're going to be cold all the way down into the south part of Florida, well below average temperatures. So this is going to be a pattern and kind of a cycle we may see repeat several times over the next several weeks with these outbreaks of cold coming out of Canada. By late next week, this is a week from today, we kind of have a similar configuration. We have a high pressure on the West Coast, more Pacific waves come up over the ridge and down, pulling in Canadian air. This low back here over the southwestern United States is going to be producing weather in the southwestern United States finally, but also pushing moisture up over the cold air. So this is a recipe for the next couple of weeks, maybe the next 3, of a lot of winter weather across the nation. So the devil will be in the details, and we'll sort that out more for you as we get into early next week, because there'll be a lot to talk about. So over the next week, total precipitation looks like this. See this down into New Mexico, even southern areas of Arizona. You might finally get some precipitation again. You can see heavy moisture here along the Gulf Coast. So this is a recipe for a lot of winter. We'll have more for you on Monday. Have a great weekend.